episode 74. Don't stop.
This is the One Extraordinary Marriage Podcast, home of the 7 Days of Sex Challenge, featuring your hosts, the authors of the groundbreaking new book, Stripped Down, Tony and Alisa DiLorenzo.
Welcome back to One Extraordinary Marriage, where we talk about life, love, and the pursuit of intimacy. You're here with Alisa DiLorenzo.
And Tony DiLorenzo.
And we just got off a great weekend.
We did.
We had date day. We don't often get date day. And it worked out because Tony's brother, Paul, works for DreamWorks. I think we've talked about that once or twice on the show. And yesterday was the family premiere of the upcoming new movie, Kung Fu Panda 2.
So go see it, please, in theaters.
Yes. And if you want to see Tony's brother's name, you have to wait until the very end, past the HP and the Intel logos and all of that. It's very end. Paul DiLorenzo.
It's about 20 minutes into the credits.
You really have to sit. You're the last person in the theater. The kids and I have done this, and the kids are like, "Really? Can we go now? Can we go now?" No, I'm like, "No, we're going to see Paul's name." But so Paul and Melissa took the kids.
Yep.
I know I'm jumping right in. Like, what do we do this week? But that was like the big thing.
But what was really fun for us was that we've gone to Glendale, where my brother and sister-in-law live, and typically we go to their condo complex, and we go in and we leave. We don't go anywhere. We stay there. And so because the kids were with aunt and uncle, Alisa and I got to do a little exploring. And because where we live in San Diego is suburban lifestyle and you sort of have to drive everywhere you go, it was really fun being in an urban setting. Mm-hmm. And we were able to walk around and just sort of explore a little section of Glendale. But it was fun. We had a blast. We were just walking around, looking at some new places, seeing what was there. Mm-hmm. It got to about lunchtime. We were starting to get hungry, and we busted out the phone, started looking for some places to eat. We found that there's a street called Brand.
And yes, for all those of you that are wondering, he did have permission to use the phone.
Oh, yeah.
This wasn't one of Tony's, like, let me bust out the phone and tweet about everything.
No,
moments.
No.
So
we're just looking for somewhere to eat, and we happened to head north on Brand. We didn't know which way to go. We were sort of sitting at this crossing, and we're like, well, let's head north. And we were walking, and we really weren't seeing anything. There were some other Brand name places we could have eaten at. We saw an Islands, we saw BJ's, but I was anyways feeling, let's go get something that we wouldn't get here in San Diego. And so the stomachs were starting to grumble, and I know Lisa was just sort of like, I'm getting hungry, and we just kept pushing forward and pushing on. And luckily we did. It was a beautiful, gorgeous day. It had to be in the 70s. Fantastic day. And we came across Portos. That's it. All I know is up to that point we saw a couple places, some outside seating. Nothing looked great. Nothing really caught us. But we come to this place, and it's just busting out of the seams.
Like, they probably had 20 outdoor tables, and they were all full. It was like standing room only for the tables. And then we look inside the place, and there are people everywhere. It's the kind of place that you walk up to when you're hungry, and you're like, okay, if there are this many people eating here, this is the place to eat. Like, I have no idea what they serve, but there were so many people, all shapes, sizes, and colors. And I'm like, okay, really? Whatever it is in here, this is where we're having lunch. Mm-hmm. And I'm so glad we did. It was, this amazing bakery and these homemade sandwich. It was just
out of control. We walked in there, and there's lines everywhere. From what we understood, or what I understood from my brother, they were one of those, one big size stores, and then I guess the one next to them had closed down, and they bought or they leased that, or they're leasing that space. So it's just these two huge sections, and one side is just like all their pastries. We're talking cakes and cookies, and just all sorts, and then a big old coffee bar, and then the other side they had
like a restaurant, sandwiches,
more sandwiches, and so we were sort of lost first off when we got in there, but it was wonderful. It was just fun to sit out on the patio and just hang out, munch on our meal, chill, no kids. You know, and I'll have to say this was probably one of those times where Alisa and I didn't do a lot of talking. You know, it was one of those times where we had done a good amount of talking driving up. It's a 2.5 hour drive here from San Diego there. So we have plenty of time to talk. And it was just sort of nice just to be there in Alisa's presence and not really have to say anything.
Right.
You know, years ago when we were married and we would do that, I'd always feel a little tense, like, oh boy,
we're not talking. Oh, what's going on?
What's going on? Is everything all right? You know, and then I'd get into this whole questioning of her and interrogating her when really there was nothing wrong, but my interrogation would get her pissed off at me, which then would lead to a crappy afternoon. And I think over the years of us just being married and talking as much as we do and communicating as well as we do these days, you know, it's just sort of nice just to sit there and, you know, every so often, well, how's your sandwich? And oh, it's good. It's like, all right, cool.
And it's been, you know, we were talking about last night driving home from LA. And so last weekend we had a day that we were gone and we were at the Big Hat Tea. And so that was a long day of driving and spending time together. And, you know, again, this weekend we had that. And we're really, you know, unexpectedly having these opportunities to just spend a lot of time talking and dreaming together. And I was thinking about that because I've been gone. We're recording on Sunday and I've been gone most of the day. And we're starting to dream together even more so than we have over the last couple of years. We're really, you know, getting refocused on this emotional intimacy where we are, you know, we're casting big dreams and big goals. And yeah, I found myself as I was driving today going, you know what, I really love dreaming with Tony. You know, and I don't think I've told you that, but it's just, you know, we're having these conversations about what we want to do with our businesses and what we want to do with our lives and you know, how we want to protect the lifestyle that we have in terms of just flexibility and you know, freedom and things like that to do those types of things. But we're spending a lot more time now talking about that together and what that looks like with both of us playing a part in that. And I thought, you know, how blessed am I that I get to have these conversations with Tony and we get to have these times, you know, in the car where, you know, we could just sit there in silence. And sometimes we do, and that's fine. But we had such a relaxing day yesterday that we even, at one point in time, we'd driven out to, so after we had lunch in Glendale, we drove out to Santa Monica and then just drove up the coast to Malibu and went past Malibu to a place where I'd done my first 5K at Point Zuma Beach. And Tony just pulled over because he's like, what do you want to do? I said, really? I'm just exhausted. I could pull over on the side of the road and just take a nap. And so I found a place, you know, by the side of the beach. And that's what we did. We pulled over, we had the windows open. There was this beautiful onshore breeze. And we took a nap in our car in the middle of the afternoon. Which was exactly what we both needed in order to be able to drive home that night, another 2.5 hours. And, you know. And
it was perfect because what we ended up doing is we were headed northbound. I did a U-turn, headed southbound on PCH. Coast was right to our right-hand side. Again, a beautiful day. We rolled down Alisa's window, rolled down mine a little bit because I was on the PCH, the roadside. Opened up the back windows, laid back, and I mean, we napped. I mean, I napped hard for probably a good half hour. I mean, just this beautiful breeze from the waves or from the ocean coming in, listening to those waves crashing. It's just good.
And you know, here we are. We're on a date day, and I'm thinking, okay, so we had a lunch where we didn't say much, and we took a nap together in the car by the side of PCH. Pacific Coast Highway, for those of you that don't know what PCH is, and just spent time in each other's presence, enjoying the silence. It wasn't awkward. It was just like, you know what, we're just having a comfortable day together. And you know, it kind of ties into, well, it doesn't kind of, you know, everything's got a purpose when we're on the air, but you know, today's topic is don't stop. And you're going to see how that kind of plays out into, you know, some of the emails that we've received from listeners over the last week. But you guys have heard this. Every relationship coach, every counselor, everybody talks about, you know, you got to date your spouse.
Right.
And whether it's the kids are in bed and you're like, let's pull out a board game and just have fun. Let's cuddle up on the couch and watch a movie. Let's go for a walk. Let's go out to whatever your thing is. Be intentional about it. You can have those silent times together, just being in each other's presence. You don't have to jabber off each other's ear on, whatever the topic might be. Sometimes it's just enough just to be together.
Mm-hmm.
To say, we're spending the day together.
And it's taken us years to get to that point, though. I think early on in our marriage, the silence would sometimes be deafening. It was just
awkward.
And as we've grown, it's okay. It's all right. I mean, there's obviously times when it is awkward, and I think all of us who've been married for many years can understand that. For those of you who are younger in your marriage, you might not be there, or you may. But I will say, over the years, it is nice just to be around Alisa and not necessarily have to say anything.
Mm-hmm.
There's something. It can be very romantic. It can be very filling. It can be very. It's almost like love without words.
Aw, that's actually a very romantic way to describe that. The silence, love without words.
You're welcome.
Aw. Okay, everybody, with me. Aw. So, shifting gears slightly, because I got a little fired up this week. Don't stop. Topic for today's podcast, whenever you're listening to this. We talk about a lot of things week in and week out that you need to be doing to be moving your marriage forward.
Right.
To be moving your relationship forward. And every once in a while we get an email that will fire up one or the other of us. And this week it was my turn. And I'm going to share this email with you, and I'm going to, very much tie it into why I called this episode Don't Stop. And this is a message that we got, I guess it was a little bit more than a week ago, but from a new listener who said, "Hi guys, I've just discovered your podcast and was going through back episodes to see if my problem was covered, but I've gotten impatient and I'm just going to write. First of all, we love that there are 73 episodes, and we've covered a lot of material, and sometimes it's not so easy to scroll through the topics and find out if your particular question's been answered. So feel free to write. You can always reach me at askalisa@oneextraordinarymarriage.com.
Or ask Tony at oneextraordinarymarriage.com. And I will have to say, though, we sometimes don't remember what we talk about in every episode now. So if we don't and we can't put you to the right episode, we'll email you.
Exactly. But she goes on to say, my husband and I had a very active sex life before our baby. My libido was greater than your average wife. I couldn't dream of turning my husband down. Then after the baby, nothing. I couldn't care less about sex. Occasionally I'll be in the mood, but that usually passes before we do anything about it. By the time we get to bed, all I can think about is sleep. The prospect of sex doesn't sound attractive at all. We're 9 months post-baby at this point. I've gone to more mature married women and respectable books for advice, but all I hear is that I'm the one responsible for making myself want sex more. I need to primp and dress up. I need to pray about it. I need to think about sex all day long. And if all else fails, just grin and bear it because it's my responsibility. If I'm not the one who wants sex, why is it my job to make sure we're having sex? In my opinion, if my husband isn't making sex worth my time and effort, he doesn't have a right to sex with me. If he wants to have sex, he needs to give me a reason to look forward to it. But right now, it's just another thing on my to-do list. And I have to tell you guys, my hands are sweating as I read this. And that doesn't happen very often because I feel really strongly about a lot of things that came through this message. And I have responded to this listener, and some of it is going to be exactly what I share with all of you tonight. My first response to this was, I feel really bad for her husband. Granted, I only know one side of the story, the side that comes in on the emails, but there's a lot going on in this marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And at 9 months post-baby, I don't know if there have been issues with the baby that have caused things to happen, But I got really fired up because if it's just one more thing on your to-do list, you've stopped putting your husband first in your marriage. And if you're sharing with me that it's on your to-do list, at the bottom of the list, I'm guessing in this scenario that you've probably also shared that message with your husband, either verbally or non-verbally.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's firing me up just to have read it and be sharing it with you guys.
And why is it firing you up so much?
It fires me up because the rejection, and I can put myself back 4 years ago, before we did our first challenge, where rejection was commonplace in our marriage.
Mm-hmm.
On my part, rejecting you. And I know the damage that I was doing to our, in hindsight, I can totally see the damage that I was doing to our relationship, that, the kids or reading a book or, anything else was more important than you.
Brushing your teeth.
Brushing my teeth.
Doing your midnight mask.
Whatever.
Taking a real long shower.
You name it. I mean, I could have written the book on excuses and rejection. And, I read this and the whole thing, if my husband isn't making sex worth my while, then he doesn't have a right to have sex to me. Sex is not a right in marriage. It's not like you put the ring on your finger and now you suddenly have a right to each other's bodies. Like, wow, you should want to be intimate with your spouse.
Mm-hmm.
It should be a desire of your heart that this person that you have said, I pledge to love you and to be your partner for the rest of our lives. Our vows said, as long as life shall last.
Mm-hmm.
You should want to desire that. You should want and you should desire that person. And, it's not a one-sided thing. He shouldn't have to be doing all the work for it to happen in your marriage.
Well, and if he is, and he is constantly getting rejected because of your notion that he needs to work to get it, and then you reject him more than a couple times, maybe a handful of times, eventually, as husbands, we start to give up. We give up. I mean, some of you guys out there may be a little more tenacious, some may be less. But after a while, it gets old. And, why should we go after you if we know we're going to constantly get rejected?
Absolutely. And that was, one of the things that I wrote back to her is, I don't know what else is going on in your marriage. I don't know if he feels a tremendous financial burden with the family dynamic shifting. I don't know if you've made it very clear to him that the baby takes precedence over him. I don't know if, I don't know if you've changed, if you haven't made clear boundaries around your family. I mean, sometimes when, couples have a baby, grandparents get super involved.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the husband gets pushed to the bottom of the list. And the other thing that really got me fired up in my response was that, she talked about all of the things that she's done, that, she has sought out counsel from mature married women and respectable books. And yet she discounted all of the advice. She discounted that she has responsibility in this equation, that, primping and dressing up, praying about it, thinking about it, and sometimes just doing it. And so my response to that was, well, we wrote 2 chapters in our book about priorities. One, about some of these topics we wrote from the top down.
That's our first chapter.
Very first chapter, we talked about God first, spouse second, then children, then everything else.
Work, then everything else.
So that's, you got to have your priorities in line.
Right.
Because if your children are at the top and they're the most important thing, it's pretty obvious to the spouse that they're not important. And I understand you have a 9-month-old, and so there are lots of demands on you as a mother. I've been there. But there are some glaring issues in this marriage that tell me that the husband doesn't even feel that there's a value.
And here's the thing. You need to get it straight now. If your kid's 9 months old, don't do like we did and it took us years to figure this out. Get it right now. Alisa and I have done small groups on our book, Strip Down. And we've been in there and we've gone over the first chapter and we have those that are participating. What does that order look like in your life? And we have them go around the room and tell this. And no kidding, when the kids are on top, if work is on top, man, you can see the spouse going, yeah. And it bugs me. I mean, the conversations that come out of it are pretty intense and they're necessary. So I want to say for those of you out there who are listening right now and you're going, yeah, man, my life is flipped upside down, you know? We're running around. Our schedules are packed. We got this and this and this and this and this, and everything comes before the two of you. It might be time to pick up our book and read just chapter 1 for crying out loud. Heck, I don't even think you got to buy our book to read chapter 1. I think you can go to Amazon and just put Stripped Down by Tony DeLorenzo and you'll get the first chapter for free. You know? Come on, folks. I want to sometimes say it's simple. It's not. Our lives are crazy, but if we don't hone in on each other and we don't grab it quickly and understand it quick enough, things can get out of control fast.
Well, and that's where I want to tie this in with this particular lesson. Don't stop trying on your marriage.
No. Oh, no.
Don't stop doing the things. Whatever was working before the baby, yes, I know the dynamic has changed. There is another human being in your marriage, and 3 is a different dynamic than 2.
And body image may be
absolutely
come into play. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. We know Alisa, gained weight, didn't look good, didn't feel sexy. I mean, I'm sitting here in the middle going, well, what the hell do I do? It's like, I don't understand where I am here, and what eventually helped was Alisa being able to talk to me about it, because I wasn't sure where I was supposed to even be in this whole equation, because I felt left out, and it's just the letting your spouse know that, hey, this is what's going on. It's not going to last forever, but at the same time, you need to be scheduling those times when you are spending with them. And that's something Alisa and I didn't do, that we should have done much better way back when. Have the conversation, understand that this little thing requires a lot of our time, but where's our time? Schedule it. Now, I'm not saying it has to be sex. You guys know that. There are 6 forms of intimacy we have, and we should have been applying or getting into those each and every week, some way, somehow.
And we weren't. And
no, not at all.
The other chapter that I had referenced to her is our very last chapter in the book, and that's called Prayer Works. And, the discounting of, seeking, I'm so thrilled that she had sought out advice from mature married women, because those of us that have been married more than 24 hours, sometimes it seems like, and I say that in jest, but those that have been married a long time, there's a reason they've been married a long time, and if they're in marriages that are growing and flourishing, then those are the women that you need to seek out. I do talk about prayer. I think prayer is vital, not only to my marriage and to my family, but you guys know I talk about prayer and sex a lot. I think they go hand in hand, because I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt, when I have zero desire for Tony, but it's his night to initiate, I start praying. Because if he's making a move, then I start saying, okay, God, I got nothing tonight, and I know it's his night, and I could use a little help here. And sometimes that's exactly what my prayer is. It sounds just like what I just said. And I know that Tony has prayed for me sometimes to get in the mood.
Yeah. And, and vice versa. This isn't just a female or wife thing. I mean, there have been times when I am beat down, tired, and have had a long day, and I have a lot on my mind, and I'm thinking ahead of what I need to get done tomorrow, and Alisa decides to initiate sex. And I need to sit there and just go, okay, God, my wife is coming on to me, and I need to be fully here for her. Please, Lord, arouse my desire for her.
Mm-hmm.
Let me be present in this time so that I am pleasing to her. There are times when us guys just aren't all there, nor do, it goes both ways. The stereotype is guys that always got a hard on and always wants to have sex, and the female doesn't. It flips too.
Mm-hmm.
It does. And some of you who are getting older in years, I mean, there's hormonal stuff that's happening. We hear about that as well. So I have done that myself.
Mm-hmm. Well, and one of the things that, as we're talking about this, I'm thinking we had Alisa Bowman, who wrote a follow-up to the 7 Days of Sex Challenge.
Mm-hmm.
She
from Project Happily Ever After.
She actually, in her summary or her follow-up piece to the one that she had written prior to it, talked about the fact that sometimes just having more sex increases that desire.
Yeah.
And I'm paraphrasing, but
we'll put a link. Let me put that in the show notes.
But she was really surprised because she, and even says, I didn't think much of challenges prior to doing this. But what I found was that when you get in that mindset, it leads to being in that mindset.
Mm-hmm.
It perpetuates itself. And we heard that from other fans during the last week or 2 weeks ago when we did the challenge, that sometimes it's just a matter of saying, you know what, we're going to do this. And sometimes I might not be in the mood. But what I want to say specifically to this email is, and I've already said it once, don't stop working on your marriage. Don't make it another item on your to-do list. Elevate it to the point where, sometimes you just got to dig deep for that desire. And it may not be there 100%, but I'm guessing right now it's about 5%. And you're just going to have to dig deep and say, you know what, I'm going to give him a 50% tonight because that's all I can muster. But right now, I think this guy would be thrilled with 50%.
Yeah.
And you guys may have different responses to this particular message. I'd love to hear them. But it's one that I actually had to wait a few days to respond to because I was Tony said I had smoke coming out of my ears.
Yeah.
When I read it the first time.
So you can comment when we post it up on Facebook or comment on the actual post when we put it on oneextraordinarymarriage.com. Now,
switching gears a little bit because we got that message and then we got this other message. And we heard from this listener after episode 2 or 3. After episode 3. So 71 episodes ago. And she actually, I would say, is vitally responsible for the level of transparency that you guys have had over the last year plus.
Yeah.
On this podcast. Because when we got her first message, it forced us to look at what this podcast was going to be and what we were going to do, what we were going to say, and how we were going to present ourselves and who we were.
Yep. And you can go back to episode 4 to listen to that first email she sent, which, by the way, because
we read parts of it.
Yeah, we read part of it, and then we responded as well. And by the way, she's been listening from the beginning, and we do love you. I mean, honestly, wow. I look back how a year and a half now, and to remember, I can still remember that message coming in and how I felt. But you know what? Her message was vital, like Alisa said. And when we do get emails from her, it's Jean, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when we get messages from Jean, they're always awesome now.
So
I don't take them harshly. The first one I did, I've been at this for a year and a half. So whatever hits, and I just love hearing from you guys. but she just has a special place in our heart because she did. She pushed us then, and
she still does.
And she still does, which is great.
But
here's
what she had to say. She said, "Hey, Lisa, I was listening to your podcast this week and thought I'd take a minute to pop in and give you my 2 cents. Something I'm sure you love from me," which we do.
Yes, we do.
And here's the title of this week's podcast: "Don't Stop." That's it. Don't stop. I can honestly say I have listened to every one of your podcasts, and most of the time I'm just not on the same page as you and Tony, for a variety of reasons. One example being that at times I think your scope and perspective is at times limited. I feel like you are only talking to one type of couple, which may not include dual working professionals with community obligations.
But I do want to put this in, Gene. We are dual working professionals. I have a business that has supported this family for 8 years. Alisa runs a Leah Sophia business that is growing, that takes her out of this house probably 5 nights a week, driving and generating income for our family. On top of that, for all you moms out there who are stay-at-home moms, you're professionals. In my eyes, if you're at home, you're a professional because you're doing something that is going to make a difference in generations to come. So, going to put that back at you because don't discount what Alisa does.
And we do have a lot of community obligations.
Yes.
Just in terms of things that kids are involved in, things that we're involved in, there is quite a bit that goes on there.
Yep.
Let's see. For example, your comments on debt and finance would never apply or work for our household. We don't see debt as a bad thing for a number of reasons, obviously too long to go into here. A perfect example is your comment this week about Tony stating that he is serving you by driving. That comment from my husband would have pissed me off. It would betray the partnership model of marriage we have. And yet the same comment was so comforting and loving for you. I have also been left uneasy after a podcast, such as your podcast about finding a spiritual church home, where I couldn't help wondering whether God wanted and needed you in the smaller congregation with older families, and you missed that by searching for what felt right for you and Tony.
And on that point, I think
Sure,
I think these are good points, and people are probably thinking about that even in their own lives. I mean, they're probably sitting somewhere and they're going, "Do I leave? Do I not?" I don't know. We do, and we move forward. And I will tell you this: if we hadn't left where we were, you wouldn't have been able to listen to us for 74 episodes now.
This would have never happened.
This would not have happened. And I do believe that we may have been able to touch lives there, and I hope we did touch lives there when we were there. But I do know that if we hadn't left, this wouldn't have been here. And the impact that we have each week is amazing. And for us to sit in small groups with couples and walk them through intimacy issues wouldn't have happened. So I understand where you're coming from. Nobody knows. I guess when we get to the pearly gates, I'll sit there and ask Jesus.
I'm just sorry. I just had to laugh because I was imagining that conversation. Okay, so she says, "Please note, I'm not saying that you did anything wrong. It was just my reaction after the podcast, and that reaction left me uneasy. Or the times I have thought Tony has acted like a spoiled brat, wanting to prove a point as opposed to listening to you. Thankfully addressed by other posters, making me less uneasy for feeling that way, like I was being too hard on both of you." And that is something, whether it's you writing in or people that have called in, we're human.
Yeah.
And I do have to say, as the one usually on the receiving end of that, I'm very thankful that I don't have to always be the one to point that out to Tony. That if you guys hear something, and vice versa, if you guys hear something that one of us does, you're quick to call us on it.
In that episode too, I will have to say, we got a lot of comments back. And the next week I said, and I remember this distinctly still. It's weird how my memory can work. But I remember sitting there going, I don't want to hear your apology. I want to be right. And I remember people emailing me back going, darn it, that's me too. And I remember going through that episode. Now I can't remember which episode it is right now, folks, and I wish I could. But I remember working through that episode going, you know what? I'm going to start working on that because it's not about me being right. It's about me humbling myself before Alisa and just going, your apology is accepted and we're going to move on.
And our dynamic has changed a lot since then.
Oh, yeah. Again, we grow.
And that's, that's why when Tony had thrown out 2 episodes ago, maybe we should think about ending this. And I'm like,
that was last episode.
That's where this came from. We get so much from this. And you're right. We can't speak to every married couple scenario because, we talk about our marriage. Mm-hmm. And when you guys write in and we share things from you, we talk about your marriages. But, I appreciate what she's saying here in that, actually, let me read this next part because she hits it right there. She says, but no matter how much I seem to differ or get frustrated or am left uneasy after a podcast, you two do a great job. No matter what, you can see the true caring you have for the sacrament of marriage and the desire to share that with others who may be in need. And even if your specific messages or solutions are not right for everyone, there is no way that your podcast doesn't get every listener thinking and reflecting on their own marriages and relationships in general, including with children. This is an amazing service, and while there may be no immediate financial reward from it or ever, I just think you have a damn good thing going on here. No matter how critical I can be at a time be about individual podcaster viewpoints, or I certainly hope your spirit of service would overcome your interest in financial gain. Once again, just my 2 cents. Take it for what it's worth. No. Gene, thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, your comment here about don't stop. Like I said, it actually titled this week's podcast, and we now have no intention in the immediate or foreseeable future for stopping this podcast. But I also want to say to you and the other listeners out there, don't stop giving us your 2 cents. When you take the time to share your thoughts with us and to say, you know what, sometimes I think you guys totally missed the mark. Mm-hmm. Oh, sometimes I'm sure we do completely miss the mark.
And it's awesome to have folks like you out there to say that, because we learn and we put it into practice in our marriage. Mm-hmm. And when we put it into practice in our marriage, then we get to come behind these mics and share it with the whole community.
Absolutely.
That impacts thousands and thousands and thousands of marriages. So by all means, I mean, totally, Gene, I love that you email us. You always hit it on the mark, and I can appreciate that.
And I do have to say, because after that, the first message, I'm like, I don't know if she's ever going to listen again. And so to hear that you've listened to every single podcast actually blew me away when I first read the message. And I appreciate what you have to say because you have listened to them all. Every once in a while, we'll get somebody that listens to one episode, like the most recent episode, and then they'll just blast us on something. And because we've never heard from them before, it's like, well, do you know what we talk about? Have you listened to more than one? Because it's like anything. If you just get a snapshot, you don't know the whole picture. But those of you that have been longtime listeners, we love that you have that history with us. And those of you that are just getting started, we can't wait to have the history with you, because your stories become our stories. Your feedback helps us to not stop growing. I mean, it would be very easy for us to fall into ruts and to get stagnant, but because you push us, we don't stop.
Right.
We don't stop trying to figure out ways to relate to each other, to relate to you,
right?
To encourage you in your marriages, because we know that there are lots of challenges out there, and we face them. There are some weeks, and I know we've said this before, there are some weeks that you're just kind of going along, you're like, oh, this is good, this is good, this is good, and then bam, out of the blue, you're like, what just happened? Is it a full moon? Is it, we were doing great, and then all of a sudden, out of left field, you're like, who is this person I'm sleeping with?
Yep. We've been there.
And, you've
heard us on this podcast talk about those days and those weeks. And
sometimes we're just doing it right in the middle of the podcast.
Yeah. It's been a wild ride, and It's amazing. We a long discussion this yesterday when we were driving about what we're going to do with one, and what we've decided is, we're going to keep on podcasting.
Mm-hmm.
If those of you out there who are listening would love to purchase our book, we would love it. That's how we are able to just pay for what we got going on. Are we going to do more at this point in time? Probably not. You'll see us out on Facebook. We're going to still do our 7 Days of Sex Challenge. We're going to do stuff like that because we believe that we are impacting lives, and we hear from you guys that we are. So we're not going to stop anytime soon. As long as we got something to say, we'll be here and we'll be talking. We got these other things that we're doing, and we're going to look at those as ways to generate income that can support our family.
Exactly. And that's a really good point. I mean, over the last couple of weeks, this very much ties into Jean's point about whether or not this is a financially profitable venture. We've come to the conclusion that one as a ministry works for us.
Mm-hmm.
Would we love to see it be income producing? Sure. Are we gearing ourselves up for that? No, because it's important to us to have this time together. It's important whenever we get a message from somebody. We talked 74 episodes ago and said, we're not even sure if we have anything to say that anybody's going to want to listen to. But if we can help one marriage,
mm-hmm.
it will all have been worth it. And what we realized over this last week is that that's still where our heart is.
Yeah.
If we can help one marriage, if one couple just takes some time, like Jean says, to hear a message and go, you know what, we need to talk about this. How does this dynamic work in our marriage? What's going on here? I heard Tony and Alisa, and they said this thing today. Can we just sit down and talk about it? If we get one couple talking, if we get one couple to look at each other and say, you know what, let's work on our marriage, it's all worth it to us.
Yeah.
There doesn't have to be any zeros attached to that. God's got us right where he wants us, doing what we need to be doing on this podcast. And so we're not going anywhere. We're not worried about the zeros. This is about this community. It's about having people like Jean write in and say, don't stop.
Mm-hmm.
It's about us being able to tell others, don't stop.
Yeah.
That is something, if you take anything away from this week's podcast, don't stop working on your marriage. Don't stop.
Don't stop loving. Don't stop growing. Don't stop asking. Keep it going. That's what it's about.
It's like I tell my kids all the time, you have the power to make the difference in your life. You have all of that power. Look at your spouse and say, don't stop.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to stop. Whatever area of intimacy you need to work on, we're not going to stop. And think of how, if the two of you are on the same page with that, think of how much power that brings to your marriage. Think of how much stronger the two of you can be if that's your mindset. We're not going to stop. All of a sudden, you've got this united front that becomes impenetrable because you're on the same page. We're not stopping. We're growing. We're working on this. We're putting this effort in. You're a formidable wall. It's amazing what you can do when you don't stop.
This week, grab your spouse. Go tell them you love them. Give them a hug. Let them know it. Don't stop working on that marriage. Wherever it may be. You could be at extraordinary level. Keep on doing it. All right? Have a fantastic week, everyone. We love you guys, and we will see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the One Extraordinary Marriage podcast. We would love to hear from you. You can go ahead and give us a call at area code 858-876-5663 or send us an email to info@oneextraordinarymarriage.com. The website is oneextraordinarymarriage.com, and while you're there, You can sign up for our Marriage Minute Monday newsletter, and you can also purchase Tony and Alisa's new book, Stripped Down. It's available now in print, audio, and ebook formats. Also, the One Extraordinary Marriage podcast has sponsorship opportunities available now. If your business is interested in sponsoring this podcast, please contact us at oneextraordinarymarriage.com.